This is Sue with Get Sold, and I haven't done in a, a a video diary in a long time because I realize I have a lot of mental exhaustion from the last 6 months, 7 months going through trauma resurfacing so that I correctly deal with it. I have done, if you looked at my history for YouTube and all the self-help healing YouTube videos I've learned from, it like has been incredible. Um, I found a new person 2 days ago. That explained another couple of segments of the trauma and what she described. And I'll tell you who she is in a minute. She described, I think it was called like emotional avoidance, something like that, and this was exactly right. All my life, with regards to trauma, I skirted around the issue. I knew what it was. I forgave the people that did it. I understood they didn't have any other capacity to do any better. And yet, that did not enable me the ability to process emotion about it. So it's like excusing everything that happened, but still living with the aftermath of it all. Not being able to put emotion to it because we all have to process emotion. It's critical. It's critical in healing. It's critical in releasing from the body so you don't continue to get sick and ill. Um, and she nailed it because I was like, yeah, I know what happened to me. And, I had a therapist way back tell me I should join a particular group that all dealt with the same issue, and I was in complete denial. I know, oh no, it's not that big of a deal. I can cope. But I couldn't all these years. I could not. But I couldn't admit that I couldn't cope because where would that put me? That would just entrench me deeper in the shame and the guilt and all that other stuff that I was trained to accept. So I listened to that video and I'm like, wow, truth bomb. And then so I start processing that, realizing that now I have to actually look at the trauma in a different way. Not just look at it and say, yep, that's what it was, but to actually pick those segments out and reprocess that emotion by allowing it to come out of me. And even if I have to cry for an hour or a half hour or like a brief storm, 15 minutes or something, I have to do it. I prided myself on being emotionally intelligent, but what does that matter if you're still holding on to it all? You're just packaging it in a different way. And she was very eloquent in how she explained it. And I was like, wow, this is like scary, but amazing because I still haven't found anybody, a therapist or anybody, to actually help walk me through this process. So all the trauma I've talked about on my videos, etc., it's like, yep, it's there, but I haven't gone through or I understood it the way that she spelled it out, the way that you have to actually, I'm telling everybody too, you have to process emotion. And here I am sitting in my own hot seat going, that means you too. That means you've got to look at things and not sit in it, but say, okay, enough of making excuses for everybody and look at what happened and tackle it from allowing it to come out. Wow. Okay, so that was the other day. Yesterday I made a video, a couple of them, regarding Soul 2K, some of his recordings, but I felt off. And then sure enough, after I did the videos, this one might be a little more complicated. Um, my nemesis, my karmic twin flame, showed up. And in that moment, I was to learn something new. I was to learn fear like I'd never felt it before. And I was to learn a different way of coping with danger, which I'd never learned before. A YouTube video a few months ago taught me about fawning and freezing responses. Now, when you're in danger, you've always heard of the fight or flight. Well, one that they don't talk about, which I learned on YouTube, thank you, was about the fawning response. Fawning and freezing. Freezing, you do nothing. You just allow it to happen and you just pretend it never happened. You compartmentalize it. That's like the number one, or at least in my world, okay? Number two is fawning, where you just allow, you sort of laugh it off, or you just sort of like, make excuses for it, allow it to happen without the other person knowing that, no, this is not right. This is not what you want, but you feel obligated. And I, being raised in a purely sexual environment, understood that the most. I was a thing. I was not a human being. I was created for one purpose and one purpose only, perpetuated by more than one party. And to compartmentalize all that and never have help picking it apart, thank God for YouTube. Like, really, thank God. I appreciate every one of you podcasters that has stories to share, that, and you may not have even been a professional, but your own stories and how well you spoke of them, because I have trouble getting the words out. I do. So thank you. So what happened yesterday was I had to actually face this person, revisit the moment many, many years ago where I should have been afraid, and I froze, and I fawned, but mostly froze, and allowed something to happen that shouldn't have. And it's been buried deep ever since. Because the video I found yesterday had to do with, her name is Heidi Priebe, Priebe. Amazing videos. First two I listened to with her, just like bing, bing, bing. And I don't like the word lies. I don't like that. But I understand where she's going with it. 10 survival lies with complex post-traumatic stress disorder, which 6 months ago I listened to videos on complex PTSD, which I'm like, oh my God, that's me. That's how I've survived all these years. That's what I've been. Wow. Okay. So, makes sense. Anyways, so the video after this whole thing, and I won't get into the actual what happened, words spoken, events, and all that stuff. But the bottom line was I rewired my body from all the pain I went through back in December, which I was making videos to more or less hide the pain, maybe. Not hide it. I wanted to share it, but I couldn't always find the words. So I'd stumble through whatever emotion I was going through at the time, but there was still a lot more unpacking to go. I just couldn't find the words to say it. And this particular podcaster is amazing at putting it down. Um, One of the things she talked about is, first thing, fear of loss. Okay, so after this incident happened yesterday, where I felt full on fear, I felt like I was looking at the devil himself. Those eyes, those words, cold, devoid of anything. This was a person that was, I considered dear to me, that was uh, karmic or twin flame energy, and I knew I had to learn from it to fix triggers and so forth and so on. I knew that, but gosh, that's a whole other video. But let me just say, anyways, when I was done with the whole episode, everything, and I was fearful, and I had somebody on text because I didn't want anything to happen, but I was fully prepared to call the police if I needed. But I had to go through this emotional processing of, this is how most women feel around this kind of energy. And they don't sit back and take it. And they don't freeze, and they don't fawn it away. Now, that would be a normal person who hasn't gone through sexual trauma. So it was a brutal day, but it was rewiring. It was showing me that all the painful work I did back in December, January, like, I really wanted to die again. I mean, like, it's been like a normal MO, um, but it all made sense. And so what she discusses, the fear of loss, when something happens to you as an adult. Um, she says, quote unquote, if you disclose whatever's happening, you could experience loss, keeping secrets for the other person. If someone abused you, and as an adult, I can't read my own writing, uh, you keep a secret because telling the truth may cause incalculable loss. And I went, oh my God, yeah, that's absolutely 100% right on. The spiritual aspect, which I've always been more comfortable with, like I understand, I've always gone by soul contracts, spiritual lessons, all this stuff. But what I haven't been good at is actually translating in human terms, which is the emotional body that we as a human must use to process trauma, both in ancestral lines and in karma. So my human, well, let's say, was stuck in childhood in a sense, some ways, but my spiritual knowing in soul was readily adaptable to growth and understanding and getting people off the hook. Going, well, I know why all this happened. I'm just supposed to go through all the pain of it, whatever, whatever. But wow, this has been incredible. So, the three things that I've gone through in the last couple of days, huge, huge things, was yesterday revisiting the trauma response, and seeing that had actually rewired myself to take flight, not to stand there and allow something that I'm done with. I'm not that same person. I'm not controlled by the same programming anymore. I went through a lot of pain, a lot of tears, a lot of angst, a lot of already loss. Things that when I was coming home, I chalked up to, well, that's gone. And now I have to mourn the loss of that. And then two, learning to process the loss, which, oh my God. A little while ago, I went upstairs to go get something in the attic. And I saw one of my mom's dolls and I started playing it. And then there was Soul's little sweater. And I felt myself sit down on the floor and just rock back and forth with my mom's doll playing Send in the Clowns. And Sully's little sweater on my shoulder. And whether people hurt you or not, if you've ever loved them and they're gone, there's a sense of loss. I have to end here. I'll be back.